we are back for part 2. I didn't do any sort of 5-minute warning, so I'm just going to give it 5 minutes for everyone to jump online. Close the door. Young James is watching the football. I've been sat in the garden. Costume change. Oh, a bit bleary-eyed. Been out in the sunshine. Plenty of sun lotion on, but the sun has kind of warped my eyes. Welcome back. This is part 2 of making cinnamon buns. I'm going to take my time getting set up so that everybody can jump back online. Right. Our dough has been resting for an hour, and we are going to shape it into our buns, fill it with cinnamon butter, and then leave it to rest again. Part 2 of making fabulous cinnamon buns. Right. I'm going to get myself prepared while everyone comes on board. I've been chilling out in the garden, perfect day for it, and the clouds came over just as I was getting myself prepared, just as I was chilling out, looked at the clock and it was time to check on our buns. Perfect timing really. Now, to bake our cinnamon buns, we need to think about what kind of receptacle we're going to bake them in. Now, I like to make cinnamon buns relatively individual so that I can give them out and keep them as little individual cinnamon buns. However, the best thing about cinnamon buns is the middle section. Normally, or the ones that I've had, they're kind of baked in a circular kind of dish, and the middle one is always the best one because it's really soft around the edges. The edges haven't dried out on the outside. The middle part is all soft and kind of doughy and really delicious. So we want to try and keep that element to our buns, even if they are individual. The only way that I've found to do this, I've tried baking them in a muffin tray, putting each one in a little muffin hole, but each one dries out a little bit. So the best way to get the perfect texture when baking your cinnamon bun is to make them in the biggest dish possible and then just break them apart to kind of make them individual. So that's what we're going to do. I am going to bake mine in a tray bake tin. Now, I've done it before and I've used 2 8-inch cake tins and I've just put them in the 2 8-inch cake tin pans. But I'm going to make mine a little bit shallower and I'm going to put them into a tray bake tin. This will keep the majority of the central area of our cinnamon buns nice and soft and doughy, and we can still separate them out into individual little cinnamon buns. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to take a hay fever tablet today because I'm getting a bit puffy in the eye area. So that is what I'm going to use. And I was just debating whether I should line it with something. I'm not sure. I think I will. I think I'm going to line my tray with some greaseproof paper. Normally, when making bread, you don't need to line whatever you're using to cook it. But I am going to use some lining paper to line my tray. Hello, welcome back if you've just hopped online. This is stage 2 of making cinnamon buns. We haven't done anything yet, we're just getting prepared. I didn't give you any warning, so I thought I would take my time with getting stuff prepared just to give you time and chance to jump online. So, I am using a shallow tray bake tin to make my cinnamon buns. However, you can use a round cake tin. You can even make them in your muffin tray and put them in little individual muffin holes if you want to. That will work fine, but they do tend to dry out a little bit more. So the best way to keep the perfect texture of your cinnamon buns is to bake them in a large tin or a large kind of baking receptacle and then break them apart once they're baked. Keeps the outsides nice and soft and doughy. So I'm going to be making mine in this tray bake tin. I'm going to be making mine relatively shallow, so they won't be very deep, so that I can get more of them in.
and then I can have more cinnamon buns at the end of the bake. Now I'm lining it with a bit of grease-proof paper, baking paper, pressing that into all the edges. I don't like grease-proof paper, it's very difficult to work with, but it's handy. So, think about what tin you're going to use. And now, oh, choking myself with my top. Let's have a look at our dough. Hopefully everyone is online now and ready to check on their dough. It has been resting for 1 hour and 5 minutes. So let's have a little look. Oh, it's not in there. I just went to look in the cupboard. It's not in the cupboard. The kitchen was so warm, I just left it out on the kitchen surface. And here it is. I haven't looked at it yet. You are the first people to look at my cinnamon buns. Right, get the laptop open as well so I can see your comments as they come up. So, ready? I'm not going to look. You can look first. How is it? Is it doubled? Is it doubled? Whoa, it has risen up. Whoa, look at that. Beefcake! Our dough has risen up beautifully. Right, I'm going to keep that covered and leave it to one side because it is ready to use, but we are not ready for it yet. So let's leave it over in a little warm corner over there while we get our filling prepared. So we need to create our cinnamon butter filling. Now, when you were watching the first part, you will have seen that I used all of my vegan spread. You should be using vegan spread to make your filling if you are making vegan cinnamon buns. However, I've run out, I don't have any. So I'm just going to be using butter. I'm a really terrible vegan, bit of a half vegan really, but don't worry because it will work out just fine anyway. I mean, I'm having steak for dinner tonight, so you know, it swings and roundabouts. Try and be vegan to help the planet a little bit. Every little helps is what I say. Right then, so we're going to make our filling for our cinnamon buns. We need butter, vegan butter if you've got it. We need sugar, caster sugar. You can use brown sugar as well. And we also need cinnamon. Cinnamon. I think I might use a bit of brown sugar in fact. Don't need to use brown sugar, but it will give it a nice flavour. So let's use a bit of brown sugar as well. Right then, here we go. To make our filling, we need, oh, make sure I've got the right filling, 75 grams of softened butter. So let's weigh this out. 75 grams of butter. And whoa, that's, oh, perfect. 75 grams of butter. And we are going to warm that up to soften it in the microwave. If you are using your Trex vegan butter, you need to make more of it. It doesn't spread as thinly as dairy butter, so you are using 100 grams of your Trex butter. You don't really need to soften it as well because it's quite soft as it is. My butter, it's quite firm, so I'm going to warm my butter up in the microwave. We don't want to melt it completely, we just need it softened, so don't put it in there for too long. Now I just realised I definitely do need a big bowl for my butter, for my filling. So, we're making our filling. Hello, welcome back everyone, happy Saturday. I hope you're having a lovely bank holiday weekend. Even though work is not as it normally is, it's still a bank holiday weekend, so we can still treat it as a bank holiday weekend. So, we've got our butter softening in the microwave. Don't worry about softening your Trex if you're using vegan butter, vegan spread, because it won't need softening as much as normal butter. So we've got softened butter. Now we need to measure out our sugar and our cinnamon. So we're using 100 grams of sugar. I'm going to use half and half, brown and caster sugar. So 50 grams of caster sugar, and I'm going to use some brown sugar as well. Why not? I can. The world is my oyster. So we need 100 grams of sugar, and we want 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. So we're measuring out our sugar and our cinnamon into a bowl.
2 teaspoons of cinnamon, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, and we're going to mix that into our sugar. And then we're going to add our butter and mix it into a very strange brown kind of spread. That's all I can describe it as, that's what it is. Right, mixing the cinnamon and the sugar together. And then I'm going to put the butter in there. This is why you want your butter to be soft, because it just makes it easier to mix into the sugar. Mine is a little bit firm. It's annoying. So we're mixing our butter into our sugar and our cinnamon. Soften your butter properly and it will be a lot easier to mix. Mine needs to be softer, but it will still mix, it will just take me a bit more time. So I have time to talk to all of you wonderful people. This is our filling, and what gives our cinnamon buns its cinnamony flavour. Cinnamony. So we've got 75 grams of butter here. If you're using vegan butter, you need a little bit more of it. You need 100 grams. Get back in. We've put in 100 grams of sugar and 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, and we are just mixing it in to kind of a paste. Be like a cinnamon. Oh God, this is annoying me. I'm going to microwave this a little bit because my butter wasn't quite soft enough and it is not mixing very well at all. And I'm going to get into a right mess. So I'm going to pop it in the microwave to soften it. Hopefully if your butter is softer than mine is, it won't take you too long to make it into a spread. Pop that in for a couple of seconds just to soften our butter a little bit. Right. Just take that out. I don't want it to melt. See if that's helped it. Oh yes, much better. Right, there we go. Now we're cooking with gas. This is what we want. Soft butter mixing into our sugar and our cinnamon to make a brown spready paste. It's exactly what it is. This is all the flavour. This is the wonderful flavour for our cinnamon buns. Fabulous cinnamon paste. Give it a really good mix. You want that butter nice and soft, spreadable consistency, all mixed in with the butter, with the sugar and the cinnamon. Don't want any chunks of butter in there, so make sure it's all really well mixed. There we go. That's our filling done. Right, perfect. Cinnamon bun filling finished. Right, we don't need our scales anymore. It's time to get out our fabulous dough. I'm going to give my hands a wash. I've been applying sun lotion, so my hands are all covered in lotion. There we go. Hands a bit of a wash. And we are ready to prepare our dough. Now, what we need to do is sprinkle a little bit of plain flour onto our work surface. We use the hole in my bag. Strange little hole. Right then, a bit of plain flour onto our surface, just so that our dough doesn't stick. Move our sugars and bits and bobs out of the way, we do not need them. Pop our butter back in the fridge. Right, we're ready to do it. Let's get our dough out. Oh, come with me dough. Now all together, this has been resting for 1 hour and 15 minutes. We put it into rest at 1:45. And look at it, look at the size of it. That is just what you want. It's risen up, it's twice its size. Oh my God, it's so beautiful and soft. It makes me want to eat it. I'm not going to eat it, it's not cooked. But that is perfect. Look at that. When you press your finger in, it leaves a dent, doesn't spring back. Gives it a little bit of a rise, but it doesn't spring back completely. That is how you know your dough is risen. Proved. Right then, let's turn this out. Get your dough out of its bowl and onto your floured work surface, just like so. And we want to roll it out into kind of a big oblong kind of shape. knock all of the air out of it, and we are going to roll it into a nice big long rectangle. That's what we're going to do. So we're going to go out. Bit of a trick, if you press your rolling pin in a cross formation and then roll the edges out first, like so, you can keep it into a relatively equal rectangle. She says. It's not quite working. There we go. Roll it out into a nice long rectangle, just like this. Kind of want it into like a square shape, so roll out the edges. You want it in a rectangle. Now I'll measure mine so that you can see how big mine is, but you don't have to be too crazily precise with it, as long as it's relatively evenly rolled, so you haven't got any kind of thicker areas or thinner areas, and it's in an equal enough kind of rectangle. That's all we want. Now this is dough, so we can pull it and we can stretch it and we can kind of move it around to wherever we want it until we are happy with the size. Oh, moving my laptop out of the way. The size and the shape of it. So this is what we're doing. Roll it, roll it, roll it, roll it. Great. Now, I've done mine relatively thin. It's about 2 millimeters thick. It's quite thin. It's going to make lots of lovely cinnamon buns. I'm excited. Now we spread it with our filling. And that is what we do. Plop. You will notice you are using your Trex vegan spread, that it does not spread very easily. So, which is why you need a little bit more of it compared to the butter. But just take your time with it. It will spread, but just it's a little bit harder. Now, we want this all the way across all the edges of our dough, making sure that we pay close attention to the narrow edges. And you will see why when we roll it up. So get it right up to the narrow edges. The longer edges you don't have to worry about quite so much because they'll be rolled in. But our narrower edge will be the end of our cinnamon bun roll, and we want that to have lots of filling on. Some of the best bits. We don't want to waste any of this dough. We won't be throwing away any of it. We're going to bake it all because it's all delicious and we spent hours and hours kneading it, didn't we? So we're not going to waste any of it. Keep spreading your marvellous cinnamon butter filling all across your dough, paying close attention to the narrower ends and making sure that you use up all of that lovely filling. You don't want to waste any of it. So scrape it off your spoon, make sure it's well scraped off your bowl. Don't waste a drop of it. There we go. Spreading, spreading, spreading. Oh, it looks so fabulous. Look at this. Don't spread my butter on my dough. Great stuff. Right. Pay close attention to the narrow end of your dough. Make sure it's covered with this filling. La 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 la. Right. There we go. Perfect. Make sure it's nice and even. You don't have any bigger, thicker blobs or shallower, thinner blobs. Get all of that lovely filling on there. Ta-da! Done. How's everyone getting on? Have you spread your filling well? Your vegan filling will take longer to spread, so just take your time, get it spread out nicely. And now we are going to roll it. So what we want to do is just tuck in the first edge. Give it a little bit of like a fold. Don't worry if it's a bit misshapen. It'll all be rolled in there perfectly, so don't worry. Give it a bit of a fold, a bit of a tight roll there on the end, and just keep going with it. That's all we need to do. Make sure it is rolling and it's not spreading. You want to make sure that it's folding over itself and it is rolling up so that we can get that lovely iconic roll in the middle of our cinnamon buns. Right, and keep going with it. There we go. Take your time, no need to rush. Make sure it's all well tucked in, tucked under, and keep rolling your dough. We are rolling it from the wider end upwards. So the narrower ends of our rectangle are at our sides, and we're rolling it long ways. Keep rolling, 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 rolling. If you roll it the other way, you're going to end up with very, very thick cinnamon buns and not very many of them. I mean, you can if you want to. If that's your jam, then go for it. But I want more cinnamon buns, and I don't mind them not being so thick. And there we have it. And I'm going to roll it all back towards me so that you can see. Oh my God, this looks so beautiful. Look how lovely and even it is. High five me. Right, there we go. Cinnamon bun roll done and ready to rest. Right, now we need to chop it up and put it into our tray. As I said, I'm using a tray bake tray to bake my buns, and that is where they are going to rest. So whatever you are using to bake your buns, that is where you need to put them now. Apologise for anyone who's getting nervous with me swinging this knife around. Right, so what we need to do is we need to chop them all up into individual buns. We are going to keep our ends because they're still just as delicious. Now I want mine to be quite shallow. I don't want them too deep because I want to make lots of them. So I'm going for about, I'll say about an inch. What do you reckon? Is that about an inch? So go along and kind of mark out on your dough where you're going to cut them. It kind of works by eye, doesn't it? I mean, to be honest, they're all going to be different. Let's be honest. They're not going to be equal, are they? Let's just go for it and start cutting them. Oh, a tip. If you happen to have any flavourless dental floss or possibly some very thin thread, there's a little trick you can do to cut these. You shimmy the thread underneath, cross it over and pull it, and it cuts them quite nicely. I don't have any, I did check. So this is how I'm going to do mine. I'm going to use a non-serrated knife, and I'm going to saw gently through my dough. Now this is going to keep them in a circular formation and stop them from squishing. Now that's our first bun ready to go in. This is our end, and as you can see, I'm going to place it in the tray with the end side down. It's not going to be as pleasing to the eye, is it? So it's going butt side down. Right now, in fact, I'm going to use that as a size guide for the rest. Use it as a bit of a size guide for these fellas so that we can get them all a similar sort of... Look how off I was. Ridiculous. There we go. I can put him in now when it gets too soggy. And just carry on along this kind of motion. If you do my little sawing motion, then it stops you from squishing your dough too much. Oh, look at it, so pretty. And just place your buns in your tray. You want them with a little gap in between each. So when you place them in, leave a bit of space in between each one because they are going to grow and they're going to swell a little bit more. So let's carry on slicing. I want to make them a little bit shallower. I don't want them quite this deep. Keep sawing, 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 sawing. And place your dough into the tray, like so. They get a little bit thicker as we get towards the middle of the roll, but that's absolutely fine. Just make sure you're leaving a gap between each one. We do not want them to be touching because we need to leave them room to grow. They are going to grow when we rest them the second time, and they are also going to grow when we put them in the oven. So we want to make sure that we're leaving them plenty of space to grow, room to grow. Right, keep cutting your cinnamon buns and placing them in your tray. How is everyone? Having a good day, I hope? Has anyone started on the gin yet? I don't judge. I'll be getting on it this afternoon as well, for sure. I don't know whether you were watching the video when I was telling you about the most exciting part of my week, mine and Jim's week, is discussing what we are going to have for our treat meal at the weekend. That's literally it. Tonight we are having steak with dauphinoise potatoes, a nice Caesar salad, and I made some creme brulees in the week, didn't I? So we're having creme brulees for dessert. That is our treat meal for tonight, and it wouldn't be anything without several glasses of wine. And we also have some Krabby's ginger beer, because it's a sunny, lovely day. It's a Krabby's ginger beer kind of day, so that is what we are having tonight. I don't have any ingredients in the house for making cocktails anymore, because we drank them all. But we can make a Krabby's and cider cocktail. There we go. Right, now, kind of running out of space on my tray, but I want to try and get all of these into one tray. So let's make them ever so slightly thicker. We need space for 3 more, 2 more. Let's do 2 more slightly thicker ones and see how we get on with that. Right, let's make some space. We want to make sure they've got room in between each other. Haven't done the maths very well, have I? Let me think. Let's just whack them in. Let's not worry about it too much. Let's just whack them all, whack them in, and see how we get on. Right, let's put the chunkiest one in the middle there. Look how much taller it is than the other ones. Mistake, but it will be fine. There we go. Lovely. It's still going to taste good, isn't it? That's what the general idea is. Right, so that's all my cinnamon buns in and ready. Oh, I'm annoyed with myself now. Should I adjust or should I just carry on? I'm going to adjust, you know, because I can. At this stage we can. I'm going to take a slither off this one. And I'm going to take a slither off that one, and I'm going to make them into another one. And that's what I'm going to do. Right, slither coming off this one. Don't mind me, everyone, just adjusting my cinnamon buns. And I'm going to join them two together to make a hybrid one. Stack them on top of each other. Right, and then we should have that one goes in there, and this little hybrid one goes in there. Ah, see, it worked, perfect. I planned this from the start. Right, keep them all a bit of a distance from each other, slide them all down so they've each got a little bit of room. That's an exceptionally chubby row. See that one? Maybe we should swap one of them for one of these. It's a chubby row, that one. Hello, chubby row. You'll be extra specially delicious. Right, there we go. Cinnamon buns prepared and ready for a second proof. Cling film going over these now. You can put them in a plastic bag. If you haven't got any cling film, pop them in a plastic bag. Make sure it's sealed, tucked under the edges, so that no air is going to get in there. We want to keep all the warmth and all the moisture in. And we're going to leave them in our nice hot kitchen for another hour. So I will be back with you, let's say 3 o'clock. We're coming back at 3, because it's a 3 p.m. bake along, isn't it? And that is when we are going to, where am I going with this? Leave it there. That's when we're going to bake them. So nothing else has to happen with these. We're going to rest them for another 45 minutes. Then we're going to come back, prepare the little bits and bobs that we need when they're out of the oven, and we're going to bake them. So get your ovens on at about 10 to 3 so that they're warming up ready. And I will see you at 3 o'clock. There we go. Step 2 done. Nailed it. See you all in 45 minutes. Bye.